Medical cannabis is a huge issue with veterans, as it is often the most effective treatment for both pain and PTSD. So we're proud to bring you profiles of veterans who are making waves in the cannabis industry by helping to make things better for other veterans. Welcome to the Dispense Magazine podcast. I'm your host, former Navy journalist and Petty Officer First Class, Sven Hosford. And today I'll be talking with Ron Millward, founder of Balanced Veterans, a Philadelphia-based 501(c) with new chapters sprouting up across the country. Ron saw a need for more cannabis education within many veteran organizations, and he seeks to collaborate with as many as he can. In this podcast, Ron talks about the network of like-minded medical professionals that he is building to provide wellness services for vets in need. And while cannabis is a large part of the healing path for many vets, Ron says that healthy community, conversation, and holistic healing practices are vital to living a truly balanced life. Here's my conversation with Ron Millward. I started by asking the most obvious question. Give us a definition of balanced. What is that all about?
Well, I think that's different for every single person, which makes it so exciting because balance, I believe, is something that we're all trying to achieve, and that happens on a daily basis. So for me, that looks different than my buddies, and that looks different than my wife. But I think that it's really the act of slowing down, figuring out what you need to do and what's healthy for you and what's going to help you maintain, a positive outlook and get you through your day in the best way possible. I know a lot of our community deals with mental health, and so sometimes it's a little bit harder than normal to find that positivity and to move forward. And so I just made it a practice to start saying, hey, stay balanced, find balance.
Yeah.
One of our little taglines is life has its ups and downs, but stay balanced. So you're going to have that even throughout the day. I mean, maybe you argue with your partner or something happens, at work or something like that, but it's how do you choose to react to that? And can you stay balanced in the midst of all that? So It really just became an individual practice for myself. And I realized that, wow, there's kind of something here, and some other people started to take a liking to it.
Now, did you start with any kind of mindfulness practice, or how did you come up with this, just the even thinking about balance as an issue?
Yeah, so, I mean, all throughout my therapy personally in the last 10 years, I've used different things like yoga and mindful meditation and things like that. And so it's always been a part of my life, but I never really understood or had a word for it. And just, I don't know why. I was just sitting down and I was just thinking about the principle of balance. And now it's funny because I kind of spoke that and it came to life, and now I see balance everywhere. I think I saw Cresco Labs put out a new commercial, and it's like, find balance. And now I see everybody talking about balance. So it's like, man, I guess I was onto something. But I mean, it's not like it's anything new. Everybody's been talking about that. But
yeah, they've been
I'm like so aware of it. I see it everywhere all the time.
Yeah. What inspired you to start a nonprofit organization to promote this?
Yeah, that's a great question, because you may or may not know, but leading a nonprofit organization is not fun at all times. And it's actually
recreate your military experience.
Yeah, pretty much. So to give you a little bit of backstory, this is kind of interesting because I'm in the cannabis world now, but I've worked for large nonprofits or churches for the past about 7 years of my life. And so I really understood the infrastructure of a nonprofit and how that could run, and some of the benefits and the ways that it really is helpful. And it could be a really helpful vehicle for people to use when it's used properly. And so I started to think about what that might look like. And for me, I had this crazy life change due to some trauma that I had when I was in the military. I had to have a major back operation. So I had to have a spine or a disc and laminectomy. And so it caused me to be bedridden for a little bit, and I had to slow down. I'm a fast-paced person. Like, I like to keep going. And so it kind of put a halt on my job. It put a halt on my life. It slowed me down for everything. And so I sat back and realized that, man, I did not love the 9-to-5. It was not what I, was best at. I had gifts in other areas. I was able to get a lot done in short spurts, and I'm a creative, so it just helps me to be able to work when I can and not when I can't, So I started to think about what that would look like. And then I was like, man, there are so many veteran organizations. I mean, there are just a bunch of them. I started to Google and look around. And so I specifically looked in cannabis because that's what was helping me. And so first and foremost, we're an educational nonprofit. So that's what gives us the unique ability to be able to speak about cannabis freely and things like that. But it's first and foremost, it's education. So it's not cannabis nonprofit or something like that. So, but as I was thinking about it, I talked to almost every single, and I say almost every single veteran cannabis organization in the nation. I even flew on my own dime out to California, and I met a bunch of guys out there, met some people in DC, down in Florida, all over. I just met people that were doing it, and I listened to their unique challenges. I tried to understand what they were coming up against. And then honestly, I sat back, and this is not to discredit anyone, but I saw that there was a need. And I think that some of these organizations weren't actually organizations, and they're just, they're like honestly Facebook or Instagram groups. And so I wanted to help that. And so I immediately was like, man, I'm going to apply for a 501c3, see what happens. And I want to come alongside of other organizations and help them and be a resource, be an additive. We want to be a spice. We're not trying to take over what anybody's doing. We're not trying to be something new or recreate something. We really want to be that creative connector and be able to work with all organizations, civilian, veteran, whatever, and really help resource and help the veterans, because I'm passionate about the 20 to 22 veterans committing suicide every day. And I think it takes all of us working together, not just veterans. And so that's where I'm at.
Right. So what does your education look like? Websites, events?
Yeah, so we have what's really exciting. Our team's growing every day. I'm very excited about it. We have just brought on an RN. She lives out in California, and she's becoming certified in all kinds of different cannabis education and things like that. And so we're hoping to in the future partner with other healthcare professionals and people like that. And when we put on the events, we have actual education for veterans. So we've got a couple psychologists and psychiatrists that work with veterans that help us as well. And so honestly, I mean, just yesterday I got a crisis phone call, and we had somebody that decided to check themselves into an institution, and I'm so happy that they did. I mean, it takes strength and bravery to be able to say, hey, something's wrong and something's not right here. And I talked to him for probably 40 minutes, and it was the right decision. I agreed with him. I was like, hey man, he wasn't alone. He was there with his wife. And so they got the help that they needed, but we are not the medical professionals. So I'm not claiming that I'm a psychiatrist or a doctor, anything like that. I'm just telling you that I've been through some stuff and a lot of stuff. And it gave me the unique, I genuinely care about every single person that we talk to. And so I wanted to figure out a way to bridge that gap and get some veterans the help that they need. I'm seen under the VA right here in Philadelphia, and I think it's so important that all of our veterans are plugged into a system, a healthcare network. And so whatever that looks like, some people won't go to the VA, they'll go to our professionals, and some will go to the VA.
So you've actually partnered with a team of professionals.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. There's about 17 people on our staff across the nation. We're going to be in around 9 states in the next 6 months with a physical presence. Yeah. I'm really excited. It's really been a beautiful thing. It's been very organic, no pushing. I mean, we've just had people that stepped up, like-minded individuals, and they're like, hey, we want to help veterans at all costs. And so it was a very strenuous vetting process. See what I did there? To see if these guys really wanted to be a part of it. And so the team that has come together has been really fantastic, and they're all
What kind of services do they provide, or what kind of things that they do?
Yes, so we've got some equine therapy in the works. We've got yoga instructors, some mindful meditation therapy. We've got, like I said, an RN, so there's physical therapists. Really, our goal and hope and idea is to someday partner with people. You know how they have those places that veterans can be flown into to really rehabilitate and take care of themselves and learn new skills and hopefully help get jobs. Our goal is to really create some one-stop shops in different states for veterans to come and potentially rehabilitate using cannabis, learning how to grow and create this medicine. And other things like that, while using other healthcare professionals on those. So that's a long-term goal that's actually moving a lot faster than I thought it would. And so I'm not sure, but we could be looking at something like that in other states in the next year. So pretty exciting stuff.
So you mentioned equine therapy, which is phenomenal. I've had amazing breakthroughs and seen amazing work done with horses. Where are you doing that, and who's doing what, and what's it looking?
Yeah, so there's actually, I'm looking into myself personally checking, I believe it's called Shamrock. I'm not sure if you're familiar. They're local. They're in, I believe it's Ambler, and they do equine therapy. So locally, I'm looking to partner with them, and have only had one conversation so far. But then we've got, there's a farm out in Oregon. I don't know the actual name of it, but one of our board members is very active in this community, and they're open to moving this program to wherever we really want to. So it's pretty exciting. We're not sure exactly where that will land yet. And the most difficult part about all of this is really the laws and the legislation, because we've got to be mindful of every single state and what those laws are and how that works. And so that's been the biggest hurdle, I think, is kind of figuring that out and where we're going to go. I don't think it would be in Pennsylvania at this point.
So medicating using cannabis in conjunction with these therapies and different therapists and so forth is a big part of, is an essential part of what you're doing?
It's not essential, but it is a big part for some of us. I like to always say this: cannabis is not for everyone. I genuinely believe that. And so we do have some people in our community that just come out and hike, or they'll come along and just hear stories and talk to us and things like that. So it's not just for cannabis users at all. That's a big part. I personally use it, and all of our team members use it, but we really don't want that to be a hindrance on somebody getting help or just talking to other veterans.
But it is a pretty, it's essential that it's an option. It's an option at all these different kinds of therapies and things that you're doing.
Oh, absolutely. I think that I've realized I was on 12 pharmaceuticals at one point in my life, and I've realized now that I don't want to force it on anybody at all. That's not our goal, but really I'm the healthiest, happiest me I've ever been. That's removing those pharmaceuticals and using cannabis, and I want other people to experience that. And so I'm just trying to live my truth. I don't want to be like, hey, use cannabis, it's better than that. But if they see me feeling good, then hopefully they'll want that. I don't know.
Well, it seems like a lot of your work is focused on like the mental health area. Are you seeing that some of that stigma about going to a mental health professional, is that easing some in the veterans community?
Oh man, mental health. That's difficult, because really there is this huge stigma. I mean, when you're in the military, you just shut up and color, really. You don't talk about your feelings. If you're, I mean, you stuff everything down, you get the mission done, and that's what matters. And honestly, I've lived my life that way, where I'm like, hey, I'll just get through this. Like, it doesn't matter. I need to get this done. I need to provide for my family. I need to do this. But then there are some people where it's actually crippling, where they can't move forward. They can't get out of the house and just do it. And some of those things, myself included, to be completely transparent with you, there are times where that's a reality. And so I work with professionals and figure out how to do that. And I've got a community around me that's like, hey, brother, what's going on? Like, come on, get up, let's go. We got something to do. And so that's given me a new purpose. But yes, the mental health, that was one of the biggest things that I wanted to address when we started this organization. That was mental health. And I think that I'm not afraid to tell you that it's okay to not be okay, but it really is not okay to stay that way. And so we're going to continue to push that message. I got a couple opportunities coming up to speak on mental health in some larger capacities, and I'm really excited about it, because honestly, I don't really care what other people may think, because I know what that reality of feeling so dark and so down feels like, that I want somebody else, because I know there are a lot of us, and I know that a ton of people are probably listening to this and being like, yeah, I felt that way, but I would probably never tell someone. I don't know how many messages we get saying, man, I read your post and like, I didn't want to comment publicly, but I just wanted to let you know that, man, something resonated with me for the first time, and I cried, or I felt something, or I was able to like understand. And man, I didn't think anything would come from that. It was me really just posting things that motivated myself. It was It was a phrase that helped me get through my day, and then it resonated with a bunch of other people. So really, that's what we're going to continue to do. And I think that's the best way to break the stigma down is I'll lead the way and keep talking about it. And hopefully other people will jump on board. And if they don't, I'm still going to be here talking about it.
Do you think that with Pennsylvania now allowing anxiety to be one of the qualifying conditions that we'll see more people are willing to admit they're anxious or have anxiety rather than, a full-blown PTSD or some other kinds of traumas?
Yeah, I sure hope so. I really do. I think the more, I heard this, I don't know if we want to go down this path, but I would love to. So I heard this from a lot of Vietnam veterans, right? They talk about how for so long they got back from Vietnam and they were aggressive, they were mean, they went through all this stuff, they're abusing their spouses, they don't know what's going on. They have all of these emotions, all of these feelings that a lot of veterans feel today still from the Iraq wars and all of these other wars. The difference is there was no name for it back then.
Right.
And so now we have a name for it. It's called PTSD. And so hundreds of thousands of these veterans are now able to say, man, there's something wrong with me. There's a thing that's wrong with me. And so I hope the more that people research and they see, hey, anxiety, this is a legitimate disease. There's something, that's going on inside of you. You're okay. It's okay to get help. And, hundreds and thousands of other Pennsylvanians are going to, jump in and be a part of this as well. So I really do hope that it sparks other people confronting what might feel, they may not know what it is. I feel this thing, my heart races, I get sweaty. I don't know why I feel this way, but maybe they'll Google it and realize they have some anxiety, can get some true help, man. People are living some freedom,
Yeah. Do you find that the mental health issues often go with physical issues, or there's still plenty of guys that don't have any physical scars or signs, but are still a wreck inside?
Yeah. I mean, you would, all right. So it drives me nuts. I went into a veteran service organization, will not mention who they are. And I sat down and I'm a disabled veteran. And he goes, there's no way you're disabled. There's just no way. I mean, you shaved, you have good clothes on, like you're fine. And I'm like, man, you have no idea what it took me to get up, to shower, to put clothes on, to feel comfortable enough to get in my car and drive here. I was like, you have no idea. And yeah, thank God that I have it a little bit better maybe than some others, but on my worst days, it's no better than the worst. It feels just as bad as everybody else's worst. And so it's really tough because I think that just by looking at someone, whether they have a physical thing or not, there are so many people walking around wounded and scarred and just beaten up by life, and you would never know. They have a smile on their face, they dress nice, they're millionaires, they're whatever, I mean, it's so many people are hiding, and it's really, really sad.
Yeah. What are the things that have worked the best for you? You've mentioned yoga, mindful meditation.
Yeah, I've gotten really, this is interesting because I never used to, but I've gotten really into hiking. There's something about going out in like wilderness, and I luckily live 5-minute walk from the Wissahickon. So I'm able to go over there and hike with my dog and my wife and sometimes other vets. And it's just freeing to be able to get out there. I'll turn my phone off and just breathe, or sometimes I'll go live so other people can listen to the wilderness. And if they're sitting in their apartment, maybe that helps them feel like they're out there with me and finding some peace and serenity. So I've just found that the quiet, especially living in the city, being able to escape and find some quiet with the occasional truck driving by. I mean, it's really peaceful. So that's really helpful. Obviously, cannabis is a huge part of my life. That's a regular medication that I use multiple times a day. That really helps me. And so my dog's a huge part of me. That was something really big. I didn't realize I was one of those guys, but my dog allowed me to have an emotional attachment, and it really helped me find joy. If I'm in a bad mood or ticked off, I'll come in and my dog will make me smile or something like that. So that's been helpful. But
yeah, it's like pets and sports are the traditional ways that men in our society are allowed to show emotion.
Yeah, right.
You're allowed to love your football team and your dog.
Yeah, you can cheer and take your shirt off and paint everything and get all excited about football, but man, you can't cry.
Right. Right.
You look like a fool, but you sure as heck can't cry.
Yeah. Well, I love this line you have on your website. We wholeheartedly believe that cannabis alone is not the answer, but healthy community, conversation, and holistic healing practices are vital in living a truly balanced life. I don't think you could say it any better than that.
Thank you. I mean, it's what's helped me, and I really hope that other people find freedom through that.
And to kind of put a tail on that, you've got the number for the suicide hotline up there, and you say you get crisis calls yourself. Talk about the power of conversation. Just having that, not even having somebody respond back, but just listen.
Yeah, absolutely. That I think is what has been the most unique thing about Balanced Veterans. It's been our Instagram and Facebook presence, and it's like, people are like, oh yeah, it's millennials, but no, it's not. We've got every single generation communicating digitally, and I mean, it's beautiful. Like, we've got a chat going. There's about 17 leaders all across the nation in there, and like yesterday, I was brought to tears just hearing story after story of, hey, I had a guy reach out to me. Next thing you know, I drove 15 minutes away, met him. We sat down, smoked. He shared for about 2 hours, hugged me crying and things like that. So he's like, I didn't even say anything. We sat down and I just listened to him. And I'm really proud, especially the Oklahoma guys. There's been a lot of movement over there, and just really, really beautiful things happening in just conversation. And again, none of us are healthcare. Some of us are healthcare professionals, not me, but we do have some on our team. But for the most part, it's just brothers and sisters talking and saying, hey, remember that time we were in Fallujah, or remember that time that we did that? Or you find a relating point, and it's like, man, I don't feel so weird. I don't feel so different. I don't feel so wrong. And that's been the other thing, is really there's a stigma really against veterans, and it's in a lot in our community. Sorry.
No, how so is there the stigma? Explain that.
Because in our community, and this is probably going to tick some veterans off, and I'm sorry, in our community for so long, we've played a victim role, and I think that it's very easy to say, hey, I've gone to war, I've been blown up, and you haven't. I'm like, you're never going to understand that. You're never going to relate to that. Mm-hmm. But in all honesty, I think it's time to change that conversation and say, you may not relate to that, but I'm sure you've had something happen in your life that's been traumatic as well. And so maybe we can relate to something together. And so sometimes there are these closed off conversations, not just with veterans, veteran organizations that are like, hey, we'll only work with veterans and they get it and we understand each other. But I think you understand me. We've had an amazing conversation today, and it's like, yep, there doesn't need to be a segregation at all. I think that we can have healthy integration for veterans that come back from war and get out of their military service. I mean, they're productive members of society. Yeah. I mean, I know some rock star veterans for sure, and it's like, I think it's time to change that conversation a little bit, but really meet each other halfway, and it's a, hey, I understand you and you understand me, and we may not get all of the details, but let's just love each other and see how we can find a common ground and move forward.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned Oklahoma. I see you got an event coming up there.
We do, yeah. August 17th. I'm really excited. We've got some people flying in from around the country, and we're calling it the Summer Debrief.
Yeah, so that's a great name.
So really excited. We're going to launch the Oklahoma guys there. And then the next day, a good friend of mine, Colin Wells, leads an organization called Veterans Walk and Talk. And they're a national organization. They do hiking and things like that. We're hoping to bring it to Pennsylvania real soon. But we're going to launch their Oklahoma chapter and go hiking with them on Sunday morning after the event. So it's going to be a fun weekend all around. Lots of veteran connection. And I'm really excited.
Yeah. Well, Oklahoma's like blowing up with cannabis.
They had, and it's not about finances, but I mean, those guys, it's I think their population is 300,000 in veterans, and I'm not sure civilian population. They had $24 million in cannabis sales in the month of May. Yeah. Like, I just can't even believe it. 1 month.
Well, they were giving out the permits to basically anybody that qualified and had $1,000 or $2,500 or whatever the thing was. So there was no limit on the number of growers or dispensaries.
Wow.
No, talk about the Wild West, right?
Yeah, that sounds a little scary.
Yeah. Well, I think, got an amazing program, great opportunity for veterans to get help, and also for holistic healers to provide help that may want to reach out.
Yeah.
So you got your website is balanceveterans.org?
.com.
.com. Okay. And you've got Facebook and Instagram you mentioned.
Yep.
And what kind of people would you like to see come and join your organization?
Yeah, really anybody that thinks that, here's something that we're creative, right? So if there's a way that somebody's like, hey, I've got this idea and I really think it's going to help veterans, we're going to sit down and listen to it and entertain it. And I think that that's what's taken this thing as far as it's gone so far, is we're really open to what's going to help veterans, because what has traditionally has been said to work hasn't really been working. And so we're trying to change this conversation, shift it up, and figure out what that looks like. So we're talking about putting on a painting class, and like just some different, we're going to get crazy with it and do whatever we think somebody might come out to and heal with. And that might be art. But really specifically, we're looking for other civilian, especially healthcare professionals and people that want to give back and impact veterans in a real way. And I would love to have a conversation and figure out how we could bridge that gap and help each other.
And there are some veterans organizations out there that aren't necessarily cannabis friendly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so just providing that education and plugging that hole basically is a really valuable service as well.
Yeah, we're trying to really fit into any gap that those organizations are falling in, and cannabis is really taking off in our community. As you can see, it's in the news, it's headlines, it's buzzing everywhere, veterans in cannabis. And so we're really trying to help that conversation. We've got a lot of people that have never touched this stuff in their life, and they're like, what's going to happen? And will I lose my benefits? And all of these questions. And we're just trying to answer and be there and be a resource.
So it's really amazing. You're like working against three different kinds of stigma. You've got the cannabis stigma, you've got the mental health stigma, and then you've got the veteran stigma. You kind of described those very well.
It's really easy too.
You said your job was difficult. Now we know why.
Yeah. It's even better. I'm not being paid for any of this either. So that's one thing that we've decided. I don't want to take a salary. I think that we want to continue to help and pour back into veterans. So it's made my wife's like, you're crazy. So,
man. Well, that's great.
We're in this together, and we're all about the whole family feeling better and healing.
It's great work you're doing, and I really appreciate you being on our podcast today.
I'm grateful. Thank you so much for all you guys do. I love reading the magazine every time it comes out, and you guys are just a resource in Pennsylvania, and we're just so honored to be a part, and can't wait for this.
Thanks. I really appreciate that.
And that's it for this episode of the Dispense Magazine podcast. You can find out more about Ron, what you can do to help or get some help at balanceveterans.com or on the Balance Veterans Facebook or Instagram pages. If you are in a legal state and you'd like to find a certifying physician or a dispensary near you, visit dispensemagazine.com and search our free online database. You can find copies of our print magazine in every Pennsylvania dispensary, as well as dozens of doctors' offices, holistic centers, and retail locations across the state. To find out where, or to read a copy online, visit dispensemagazine.com. I'm Sven Hosford. Thanks for listening. This has been a production of Dispense Magazine, LLC.